Welcome to another edition of the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN. I'm your host, Femi Abebefe. As always, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Our producer, Elliot Bowman, with us on the ones and twos. And a special edition the Monday after Super Bowl.
In-house.
Michael Lombardi in studio. Both of us together in 3D. Buddy, how you doing?
The first time we get to wear our, what I used to, every time I had a phone call from Al Davis, right? He would start the phone call off, I got three things for you. And he would ask me three questions.
Yep.
And I was never allowed to ask him a question. Okay? So I always said I never got a chance to wear my white jerseys because the white was the home jerseys. The Sixers, they wore white at home. Now it doesn't matter anymore.
It doesn't matter.
So this is the first time we get to wear our white jerseys here at home. We get to play a home game. I like it.
We're playing a home game here.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, the white jerseys now, I believe that's 16 out of the last 19 Super Bowls. Team wearing white has won.
It's used to, that's great. We had a winning streak when I was in Cleveland in '94. I kept wearing the same pair of underwear. And Millie says, why do you go to work at 5 a.m. if you think it's the underwear? And I said, you know what? You're probably right.
It's a good point that Millie brought up there. By the way, in case you were under a rock or weren't watching the game last night, the Kansas City Chiefs beat the Philadelphia Eagles 38-35 in Super Bowl 57. Now the second Super Bowl for the Chiefs in the last 4 years. Number 2 for Andy Reid, number 2 for Patrick Mahomes. Heck of a game down there in Glendale, Arizona. Michael, what was kind of your early reactions after last night's game and kind of the chatter now that's been going on over the last about 12 hours?
If I was Vic Fangio, I would hold a press conference in Miami today. And I would say, under no circumstances was that game plan anything that I had a part of. I want nothing to do with that game plan. Get it out of here. I advised them. They didn't listen to me. I don't know what that guy was doing, but I want nothing to do with that game plan. I want nothing to do with it. Get it out of here. Stop it. It's over. I disassociate I would run for the hills.
Yes.
That's not my plan. Because that was embarrassing. So one of the things that determines winning in football games, it's one of the key components. I think it's almost a 90% towards winning is points per possession, right?
Yep.
And so, that number sometimes comes below as 1. If you could get points per possession at 1, you're doing great. The Chiefs averaged 4.62 per possession. They only had 8 possessions of the game, scored 37 points. Seriously. And now we think, reliably reported to me, that Gannon is going to become the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. And if you're Michael Bidwell and Monty Osendorf and you watch that performance, now Matt Patricia got the Detroit Lions job off of his performance. They gave up, they never stopped Philly in that game either. So it's happened before, but I think to me, the handicap of the Eagle defense being more aggressive and taking it to the Chiefs was completely wrong on my part. Because Gannon, to me, I don't know what he did those 2 weeks, but it sure as hell wasn't but play soft zone. I think he should go in the Big 12. He played a Big 12 defense, right? Didn't he?
It was incredibly soft. The answers were quick for Patrick Mahomes. He just diced them up all game.
Especially with the end of the game with 5 minutes to go in the game when he got the ball back. He needs the ball back. You got to have to force a 3rd and long in the game, and there was no negative play, played soft zone. He hit Smith-Schuster over there on second and 8. They throw it out to the flat to Schuster, and he runs for a first down. They had to get a first down on a run with Kelsey. I thought that was a horrible spot. But anyway, I don't know what, at the end of the day, what was our strategy if I'm an Eagle fan? What were we trying to accomplish? Once you saw the front 4 wasn't getting there, didn't you have to heat them up?
You would think. And to your point, the Chiefs scored on every single possession in the second half. It was touchdown, 10 plays, 75 yards to start the third quarter. Then the next drive, 9 plays, 75 yards, touchdown. Then the 3-play 5-yard after the Kadarius Toney punt return, which was excellent, set them up there right there in 1st and goal. Another touchdown, then they end the game with the game-winning field goal. At no point were the Eagles putting any sort of stress on that Chiefs offensive line or putting any sort of stress on the wide receivers outside. Where was the press coverage? Throw off the timing.
Well, they don't play press. That's the thing. Everybody talks about, are they going to sign Bradbury back? Are they going to say, Bradbury's not a man-to-man guy. The reason they ran him out of New York is because they want to run man-to-man, and they can't. They played a Big 12, soft, bend but don't break defense. And I know Mahomes was the MVP, and look, Mahomes is great. But if you would have told me before the game Mahomes is going to throw for under 200 yards and only have 22 completions in the game, I said they lose.
Yeah.
I would have said they lose. but he maximized every throw, and they never took anybody away. Here's the reality. If you're a coach listening to this pod, here's a rule that I've said for years. I think I've said it on this pod. But if you are a zone team, you then can't be a man team. If you build your offseason program around zone, okay, and then you want to start to play some man-to-man, you look like shit, Eagles. If you're a man team that wants to play zone, you can transfer easier. You can dabble a little zone. The best defenses in all of football play 1/3 man, 1/3 zone, and 1/3 man zone dog. So they play a lot combination. And when you're planning your defense, you've got to be able to do all three really well. But you can't go from zone to man and think you're going to live. And I think that was Gannon's problem. He can't play man. He knows that he's going to get beat. I mean, Scantling didn't even have a catch in the game.
No.
I mean, like, there was no, like, if you sit there and say what catch gave him trouble, there was no catch. Like, there was just easy throws. Like, tell me one hard throw Mahomes made in the game.
There was a lot of answers that were quick and easy.
They're all high school throws, right?
Yeah.
Whereas Hurts made some incredible throws in the game.
He was awesome.
He was amazing. I mean, he made some incredible throws that I never thought he could have ever made. So, to me, I don't know. I mean, if I'm a Philly fan, and, you know, look, I've said this before, and I thought Vic's influence, we talked about Vic being involved. Mm-hmm. So last year in 2021, I've said this many times, he played twice against Tom Brady.
Yep.
He played Patrick Mahomes. They played Dak Prescott. They played Derek Carr. They played Justin Herbert, okay? Mm-hmm. Those 6 games, in those 6 games, I think the second Dak game wasn't really – I think that something happened in that game. The ball was only on the ground 36 times. Okay, ball was only on the ground 36 times. So that shows you he wants to play soft coverage. And then now he comes back and he gets destroyed by it. I mean, this is going to be one that lives for Phillies. At the end of the day, this was a game Philly should have won.
That was my takeaway, honestly, as well. Like, and kudos to the Kansas City Chiefs. Congratulations, Chiefs fans, for winning the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
But Mahomes, 21 of 27. Ball wasn't hitting the ground often there on the game last night. And on that Kansas City side, I know we're talking about a lot about what the Eagles are doing defensively. I do want to give some credit to that Chiefs offensive coaching staff, Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy, and that entire staff. They're coming in with the game plan of, okay, these guys are going to be hard to block for us. They 70 sacks in the regular season, really good front. And they went to the quick game, and they went to it early and often and got the ball out really hot. And I thought that's kind of what mitigated that pass rush there.
I mean, Bella knew they were going to go to the quick game. I mean, seriously. I mean, Bella knew they were going to the quick game.
It's why we like the Mahomes over completions.
Yeah, I mean, you knew they were going to go to the quick game. And she knew it. I mean, everybody knew it. I mean, you know, I mean, like, that's no surprise. It's like, what did we do? What did we work on all week to give them trouble? Like, poor Lou Anarumo, he's sitting there. He holds them down to nothing, the poor bastard. He can't get the Cardinal job. Meanwhile, he's got to watch Gannon get the Cardinal. Can you imagine that poor guy? I mean, think about it. Martindale's sitting over there saying, I played them better. I got no players, you know, and I can't get the Arizona. I can't even get an interview for Arizona. Meanwhile, Jonathan Gannon's coming in for the job. I want to know, like, explain to me what we were trying to accomplish. Like, I would be all ears. I'm not trying to be an asshole here about Gannon. I'm sure he's a great guy, great coach, great person. I'm not
probably
arguing.
interviews fantastically.
I'm not arguing that. I want to see it on the goddamn tape. Like, we just lost the Super Bowl. Let me tell you something. You never get over losing the Super Bowl. I had to sit here yesterday with Sean King sticking his chest out about that Super Bowl. You know,
that's right.
I had to sit here and take my medicine there. I was like, okay, take this cough medicine here. You never lose it. Like, you have your chance to get there, and you built this team that's really good, and you don't get there. And I don't think there was a play in the game as we go through it. Like, to me, I don't think there was a play in the game that you thought, oh my gosh, okay, the 3rd and 1, the false start, that hurt, right?
Big time.
Because then we fumble it and we turn it over. Mm-hmm. All right, so there's 7 points there, you know. And then when we had to get the ball back, we had to start moving the ball. The one punt the Eagles had in the 4th quarter, it was a 3rd and 11, and they zero blitzed him, and he threw, like, I think a 5-yard completion. They had a punt there. I mean, Spagnuolo was stride for stride with Gannon on his plan too now.
Yeah, I mean, Spagnuolo's plan was any high leverage situation, I'm just sending pressure,
right.
which is what he does. And he was true to himself. And I guess both guys were true to themselves because Gannon playing that soft zone coverage.
I thought Spagnuolo was in really good shape. You know, he get like the first drive of the game, he's sitting there. He's in the 3rd and 11, 3rd and 10. Mm-hmm. I mean, they were 61% on 3rd down, the Eagles, And
Yeah.
some of them were long down distance. Some of them were exactly what Spagnuolo wanted, and they couldn't get off the field. I knew the Chiefs would be in the field, that would be the swim team. I knew that they would swim up the field and get into the B, because that's kind of how they are. And so Hurts could take off and run. But, I mean, look, it was a Big 12 game at its finest. It really was.
Yep, basketball on grass is what we saw last night, and it was an entertaining game. In terms of Patrick Mahomes, though, Super Bowl MVP, his second one that he got, we were talking about it before we started recording this podcast. It didn't seem like a vintage Mahomes performance. Now, I do give him a lot of credit because at the end of the first half, looked like he re-aggravated the ankle sprain there. Seemed to be in an immense amount of pain on the sidelines. He was looking up to the sky. He was like, just seemed very uncomfortable. Comes out at halftime. I'm not sure what happened during the halftime. The 30
he got an
halftime.
injection. Yeah, no doubt.
He got the good stuff.
I mean, I'm sure Big Daddy called in there and said, "Rub some CBD oil, it'll be fine."
It was Mr. Miyagi in the locker room, just rubbing the hands together. But something in the second half, though, he kind of got back to his own self, running the football, playing well, finding his receivers. I thought in the second half he was really good, but it wasn't vintage Mahomes, but he was still, to his standards, a really good performance from Patrick Mahomes.
Look, if I would have told you Mahomes throws for 182, right? And I would have said to you that, his longest completion of the day is 22 yards. Longest completion of the day is 22 yards. You'd say they're going to lose.
Yeah.
Or they're going to lose.
Or right? He got hurt. That's what I would say.
And then their defense gives up 34 points. They're going to lose. Like, how do you do that? Now, I know their defense scored 7. But, when you're talking about points per possession at the rate they were doing it, they only punted twice. And that was in the second quarter. The Eagles dominated the second quarter. The Eagles had the ball 12 minutes in the second quarter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they dominate the second quarter. Andy Reid, for all his brilliance as an offensive strategist, screws up the middle 8 once again.
That was atrocious.
It was horrendous.
That was bad.
I mean, he's got, I thought they lost the game. They had a 3rd and 2 in the red zone. And he called that kind of weird sprint right, and the play got diagnosed perfectly, and Mahomes tried to force feed it to the tight end, to Kelsey, and it hit the ground. Then they missed the field goal off that, and then he messes up the middle 8. I thought that sequence, when we were going to sit here today, I thought we were going to talk about how he lost the game right there.
Yeah. But he has the cheat code, though. Patrick Mahomes is what he
Well,
has.
I mean, but I think something happened. I don't know if Gannon – did you think Gannon was watching Rihanna and he didn't pay attention to what do I have to do in the game?
I think Gannon was looking for real estate in Scottsdale. I think that's what he was doing.
I mean,
I don't think he was...
when you have an extended halftime like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
For me, I would have said, okay, we've done this in the first half. Here's what I want to do in the second half. And this would have been all predetermined. It wouldn't be just, okay, let's wing this in the locker room. We know we have more time, so let's go over our second half game plan on what the first half brought us. Like, that to me should have been the code. Okay, I said this on our show on Sunday morning. I was with Brent when I was eating Sean King praising. When I was doing that. I said to Brent, we were talking about Vic Fangio. I said, the difference is, though, Brent, Vic ain't going to be on the headset. So somebody's going to have to make adjustments during the game. So Vic can help you with the game plan, but at some point, somebody's got to make the calls and adjust the game. Like, I would have thought, if I would have been Jonathan Gannon, I would have had 2 game plans. I would have had the game plan for the first half. Then I would have changed the fronts, changed it a little bit, tried to change up what we were doing in the second half. So Andy didn't have a chance to adjust to him. So now he's got to readjust to me while everybody's watching Rihanna. We had so much time. Let's go over our plan here again. Okay, guys, remember we talked about this second half game plan. Here we go.
Yeah.
But they didn't do it. I mean, it gave Andy a chance just to groove it. I mean, that drive of the second half, the first drive, that was the key drive of the game, because that got him what? That got him attached. It got him from 21 to 7 to 21-14.
Yeah, it was 24-14. Then it became 24-21.
And it became 24-21.
And then that point we knew, it was like, okay, this is going to be a ball game.
And then the 3rd and 11, where when he ran that play on 3rd and 11, they threw it over to flat the game well, and he got 5 yards. I thought he was going to go for it. Mickey, my son, said, Dad, I think he's going for it. And I thought, man, that's a little far to go for it on 3rd and 6, and he kicked the field goal. But at that point, I didn't think the field goal mattered.
Yeah, because you're giving them the ball back with a chance to take the lead.
Because I said all week long, I like Philly, but unless Philly had a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter, they were going to lose.
Yeah,
I mean, because that was my mindset on that drive. We got to score a touchdown here because we got to continue to play from in front in the second half.
Gannon and what they were doing, because this is the stat, and this was from Ben Solak of The Ringer. He said that Mahomes getting the ball out in under 2.5 seconds. In the divisional round against the Jaguars, only 34% of their dropbacks. That was a season low. Conference title versus the Bengals, 40%. That was the second lowest. Last night against the Eagles, 56% getting the ball out under 2.5 seconds, the sixth highest all season long.
Yeah, so but see, I think what Ben misses is you got to understand the coverage to the getting it out. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Jacksonville played some zone dogs. They blitzed. They did some weird thing. Lou Anarumo was playing man and zone. So there's going to be not those easy, quick throws getting it out when you mix it up like that, right? This game was all zone.
Yep.
This game was all, it was a Big 12 zone. And so he's getting the ball out. See, those numbers, again, I'm not an anti-analytics, but you have to apply the coverage to getting the ball out. When you're sitting there saying we're going to rush 4, drop 7, and there's spots in the zone you can throw to, it's going to be pitch and catch, right? Mm-hmm. But when you disrupt them, what you're saying is you're going to rely on the front 4 to get there. And that field didn't help the Eagles rush.
Let's talk about that. What was up with the field?
I mean, that's the way that field's been all year.
That was bad. Biggest game of the year.
Yeah, but that feels like that all year long. It's like when you go to Green Bay, don't be surprised when you slip. That feels that way in Green Bay all the time. I don't know if they didn't wear you got to almost wear the 7-inch spikes there when you play.
Honestly.
I mean, every time I watch Sweat, he was trying to turn the corner and he slipped.
He slipped. I mean, we saw running backs slipping. We saw wide receivers kind of losing their footing. The pass rushers definitely felt like they couldn't get much footing there. And I know that reportedly there was like $800,000 poured into that field and like taking care of it and all that stuff. They were making a lot about
that George
the Sod father and all that.
Father, yeah.
But it was just insane. I know Hassan Reddick said after the game, worst field I've ever played on. I think Jordan Mailata said it was like playing on like a water park or whatever. Like that was just, I don't know what was going on there.
I mean, look, whenever you get that heavy track like that certainly helps the defense. There's no doubt. I mean, it helps the offense because what? It slows the speed of the game down. Mm-hmm. I mean, now look, it's the same for both teams, so you can't complain.
But maybe that's why we only saw 1 sack in the game because we didn't hear Chris Jones.
They only had 5 hits on them. They had their defensive front. I mean, when you go through the stat sheet, I mean, Hargraves made his presence felt in the game, but when you go through the tackle chart, right? I mean, Sue, no tackles. Milton Williams had one tackle. Fletcher Cox, 1 tackle. Sweat, 1 tackle. Hassan Riddick, 1 tackle, but he had 2 pressures, 2 quarterbacks hit, right? I mean, you go through this thing, they got no, Hargrave was their only player, which he's going to get paid ridiculously. Somebody's going to give him a boatload of money. That guy's a really good player. He had 5 tackles in the game. And he got 1 quarterback hit. They had 5 quarterback hits for the game.
Kudos to that Chiefs offensive line. We got to give them kudos.
I mean, when you're not getting pressure with 4 and you're playing soft zone, you're basically playing a high school game. No disrespect to high school, but that's what you're playing.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to mix it up a little bit. You got to have something on your call sheet to kind of get there. You're playing fucking Patrick Mahomes with a bad ankle.
And this is what a lot of Philly fans were yelling about dating back to last year with Gannon. Like, we don't blitz more. We don't blitz more. Why aren't we blitzing?
Philly radio today's going good berserk. They can blame the call.
Aren't you glad you're out here and not back?
Yeah,
back
I mean, they could blame the call. But when Bradbury took responsibility on the call, you can't blame the call anymore, right?
No. And I don't think you blame the call for why they lost the game because they lost the game because they were giving up 4 points per possession there. I think that's why you lost. I didn't like the call because I usually hate when we see stuff where it's like, that's how the game was going to end with it being a flag that extends the drive to then run the clock out. And to me, it felt a little ticky-tacky. Not to let the Eagles off the hook. It felt a little ticky-tacky. Like we said before the podcast, it was going 69 and a 65 speed limit.
Yeah.
Like technically, yes, you're speeding, but I mean.
Yeah. I mean, look, they almost didn't call the play that right before the fumble. They almost didn't call false start at the line. I don't know what the line judge was looking at. I mean, it took the umpire over here, and the Chiefs were bitching like crazy. Like the guy moved.
He moved, yeah.
It took him forever to make that call. They didn't call. There was not one holding call in the game. No.
The league called in. They said Sheffer stay out of the game.
Yeah, I haven't seen the tape. I have a feeling there probably had been like 99% of the time that return by Tony in the game, the punt return.
There's a block on the.
There had to be there's going to be a flag on that. Like there has to be. We're going to get the Zabruta film out on that one. There has to be a flag
to reverse field and there'd be no penalty.
I'm shocked he didn't score.
Yeah, he looked like he was going to score. Tony, kudos. I mean, he's one of the more spectacular guys with the ball in his hands. He just doesn't stay healthy. Heck of a play on that one to set the Chiefs up.
But it's funny. I sit there and watch the game, and I'm like, what receiver beats your back? Like, Smith-Schuster got his catch. Even Kelsey didn't break your back, right?
No.
And then what happened in the goal line, give Andy Reid credit for his play design, but they basically were playing the play in the goal line, right? With the zing motion, they were going to cut it. You could see them. And so instead of playing concepts, they played the play, and so they overkilled it.
Yeah. No, I thought it was, to me, it felt like the Chiefs won because their coaching staff was more up to the task than the Philadelphia Eagles coaching staff. We've talked a lot about Gannon, but there was other mistakes I thought Philadelphia made there. In Kansas City, kudos to Andy Reid. After the game, Patrick Mahomes talked about Andy Reid and what he's meant to this team and what he's meant to him and where he stacks up among the greatest coaches of all time.
Yeah, he's one of the greatest coaches of all time. And I think everybody knew that, but these last 2 Super Bowls kind of cemented that. And to have someone that is such a great person who gets the best out of the players and to become men and players, you wanted to do that. You wanted to win those Super Bowls for them, and it was it's great that we did that. And like you said, man, we're not done. I'm gonna have them around here for a little bit longer at least.
It's funny that he says we're not done because there were some rumblings. I know Jay Glazer in the pregame show that was about 6 hours long said that potentially Andy Reid could walk away after this game.
What would Andy do? Open up a cheeseburger stand somewhere? Seriously, where's he going?
I don't know.
I don't know. The guy, he loves it. He's a football guy.
Yeah.
He's a football junkie. He loves it. He's got complete control of the organization. Brett Veach does a great job for him.
Mm-hmm.
He's got the best quarterback in football. He's set up a place to where he can just keep driving the car, and he can keep adding to the team that he wants to add to. I think for guys like Reid and Belichick and Pete Carroll, that they've done this job for so long, that I'm not saying it gets easier for them. It gets more, the competition they're competing against isn't as great. Look at Reid versus Gannon.
It's a mismatch.
It proved out to be a mismatch. If you're Howie Roseman, you're saying, look, I got a better team. I didn't have a better scheme. I got outcoached on my defense. Now, you can't say that about their offense, but,
no.
But you got to feel like, hey, look, we got to have to fix this defense because we can't play soft like this.
Reid now has the 5th most wins all time, 247, second most playoff victories with 22, 10 conference title games, 4 Super Bowl appearances, also has 2 Super Bowl championships. He's stacking on that resume, and as long as he has Mahomes, I don't see how this thing slows down because this was supposed to be the reset year. Yeah. We talked about this a lot during the offseason. They trade Tyreek Hill. They're trying to get the cap situated to fit Mahomes' contract and this whole thing, and they win the Super Bowl in the year where they were supposed to kind of quote-unquote take a step back.
Yeah, and look, every one of those games, if you're Cincinnati and you're Zach Taylor, you had a chance to beat them. You punt the ball down the goddamn middle of the field.
Yeah.
And you killed yourself. Andy punted the ball down the middle of the field when he was messing up the middle 8 too, and Covey returned that kick. So, since he's sitting there, they have every chance to sit there and say, look, but we can say they're all going to – you got to deal with Burrow. They're going to deal with Burrow. Burrow's really good. You're going to have to deal with Josh Allen too. For the Chiefs to get where they got to, and with all the good quarterbacking play that's in the AFC, is a miracle. The Eagles are sitting there saying, wait a minute, we had the greatest opportunity. We had a Gonzaga schedule. We got to play a non-playoff team in the Giants. Come on, let's be clear here.
Giants fans are going to be mad at you.
They're not a playoff team. They got there, and it's great for them, but they're not a playoff team in terms of the compare that game last night to the talent level of the Giants. Come on, please stop.
The game was over 5 minutes
in. We didn't have to deal with Aaron Rodgers. Minnesota stinks. And then we play San Francisco, who's really good, but they lose their quarterback. So, if there was ever a perfect situation for you, it was.
Feels kind of like a missed opportunity.
I think Kyle feels today. Shanahan.
Gosh. You got to be kicking yourself. It's like, damn, I don't know how that game plays out. I think I still would have favored Philly if Brock Purdy stays healthy or if they had Jimmy Garoppolo or whatever. But you got to at least feel like, man, we could have played with those guys.
Yeah, they would have scored 35 they would have scored 34 on San Francisco, I don't think.
Yeah, no, I don't.
Hurts looked way different in this game than he did in that game.
He most definitely did. But the Niners had the best defense all season long.
No doubt
about that. And Kansas City's defense kind of holding on for dear life, but it felt like both defenses really were holding on for dear life in that game last night.
We should have played it in Lawrence, Kansas.
Yeah, or on field turf. Maybe we'll get a better surface next time. It's funny because that surface, they used it in the Orange Bowl, or not the Orange Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl between Michigan and TCU. It was bad then.
That's what I'm saying. I think it's just bad inherently. And I want to play the Super Bowl on grass. I think there's no doubt, but you want to have a better traction. I think maybe they weren't wearing the long. Like when you go to Green Bay, you've got to wear the long. There's a great scene of Sean Payton in the Super Bowl in Miami. Mm-hmm. Mike Bell comes off the field after he slipped, and Sean says to Mike Bell, "Were you wearing the 5-inch?" And Bell's like, "No." Because the players don't want to wear those heavy spikes. They don't want to wear the deep spikes. And Sean says, "Figures," because the kid didn't listen to him. And maybe that was the case a little bit. Some of those D linemen didn't want to wear those deeper spikes. That happens.
Well, they were slipping and sliding like they were at a water park in that game there. Michael, let's take our first break. We'll get to the Philadelphia Eagles side of thing. They got here NFC champions, but they fall short last night against the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll discuss it here on the GM Shuffle. All right, let's talk the Eagles side of this here, Michael. The call at the end of the game there, a lot of Philly fans not happy with that one. Nobody wants to really see a championship game end that way, but, I mean, by definition, it was a hold. The refs called it, so you can't really blame it.
I mean, the guy it was running a smash route. He was pivoting back out. They were running, and they played man, which they don't want to do. We saw Bradbury.
Maybe that was why.
And he pulled him, and the kid admitted he pulled him. Look, I don't want the game to end up that way, but if that was where the ball was, if they would have called that, and Mahomes was throwing the ball on the other side, I got that. But that's where the ball was going. Now, I guess the question is, if he wasn't throwing the wheel route, he converted it to a wheel because he got held. So the play was going to be throw the ball to Schuster in the flat. Could Bradbury have tackled him and made him kick the field goal, put him in a 4th and 2 at that point, right?
Yeah.
Just say he doesn't hold him, and then I think he tackles him anyway. He pivots back out and he tackles him before he gets to the sideline. So, look, these games never come down to just one play.
No.
When you give up 4.62 per possession, and you're crying about a call, cry somewhere else.
Yeah, your tears aren't worthy here. And to Bradbury's credit, he said after the game, quote, "It was a holding. I tugged on the jersey." So he took full responsibility for it and stood up there by his locker and said, "Hey, I made a mistake."
He's a man. He did it. I mean, look, it hurts. He did exactly what men do, take accountability for it. That's not why they lost. I mean, they lost because they didn't adjust. They couldn't stop the Chiefs in the second half. They turned the ball over for a touchdown. I mean, look, when you give up points on a on a turnover, forget turning the ball over. You give up points on a turnover, plus you give up 4.62 per possession, you're going to lose. I mean, how about points per play? That's another stat we look at. I think they have 61 plays in the game.
Yep, I think they had 6.8 yards per play, if I remember correctly. Yeah, 6.4 yards per play. I mean, the Eagles 5.8.
Eagles 5.8, but points per play. So they had how many? So when you get down and look at it, they had how many plays? They had 61 plays. No, excuse me, they had
53.
They had 53 plays. Let's do a little math here.
They had 38 points.
They had 38 points. All right, so they had divided by 53. That's 0.71 points per play. That's ridiculous. Like usually NFL games are somewhere 0.4, 0.3. That's good per play. That's 7-1 per play. I mean, that's why you lose. I mean, think about it. The guy only had 8 possessions. They scored 37 points, and they punted twice. And you're going to blame one call? Come on.
Well, that's what we do. It's recency bias. We got to look at the last thing that we saw. But to your point, though, in the second half, said before last night, this is a note from our producer, Elliot, teams leading by double digits at halftime were 26-1 in Super Bowl history, lone loss being the Falcons in Super Bowl 51 when they led by 18. Eagles were up 24-14 in the first half.
Yeah, Andy gave them 3 at the end of the half. He just gave them, flat out just gave them 3. Didn't have a problem with that. The call, I thought the catch wasn't a catch on Smith out there. I thought the ball moved. So I agree with that. I mean, look, that's the thing about the Chiefs. I said this all week. The Chiefs could play from behind. We knew that. The Eagles needed to play from in front. They did, but the Eagles needed to that one red zone stop where they got the 3rd and 11 and he had to throw the check down and make it 27-21. That really was the game because now with the ball, I could gain the lead.
Yeah, no, I thought, and mainly to that point, it almost feels like the Eagles had to play from ahead to help out their defensive coordinator versus the offense because I thought Hurts was fantastic last night. I mean, 27 of 38, 304 yards, 1 passing touchdown, 3 rushing touchdowns. He's second QB in NFL history with 3 rushing TDs in the playoff game, joining Otto Graham from the 1954 NFL Championship. Obviously, that's great company to be in there. Hurts played the best game, I thought, maybe of his entire career, honestly. Had the big mistake, though, but outside of that mistake, he was just unflappable in a big spot.
And what did he convert? All those third downs with great throws, with precision.
He was amazing.
Throws. He was really great with it. So I mean, look, if he plays like that, I mean, wow, that's
give him all the money.
To me, when you have the ball 24 minutes and score 37 points, I mean, think about that. They only had the ball 24 minutes. One of my favorite props was Mahomes on the overcompletion, and you would have thought that would have hit.
Yeah,
I thought that would have hit but they didn't have the ball enough for it to hit. They only had the ball 8 minutes in the first half. They only had the ball 2 minutes in the second quarter.
He had 21 completions in 24 minutes.
And you're going to blame a call? I mean, think about it. There's a lot of conversation about when Andy Reid went up by 8 when he kicked the extra point. What was your reaction?
I thought he should have gone for 2 because I thought the value of going up 9 was greater than only being up by 7 if you didn't get the 2-point conversion.
I disagreed. I thought now you go up 8.
Mm-hmm.
They need a touchdown and a 2-point conversion, and you're still tied. You're still tied. So I've got no blood. If I go for 2 and don't get it, I'm up 7.
Yep.
Okay, and Sirianni is going to go for 2 when he comes down there.
Because at that point, there was 9:22 left to go in the game. So you think that, let's say the Eagles score with 6 minutes left or so, you think they go for 2 to go up
I think
by
he's
1?
going for 2, yeah. Because he's got Hurts. I mean, Hurts should have been stopped on the 2-point conversion anyway.
God, he is so damn strong.
I mean, it was hard to tackle, right? I mean, like my son said, he squats 600 pounds. It's hard to get him on the ground, right? So he converts that. If you got a chance to get the lead, you got to do it. I thought that was the right call. Everyone, Andy's too conservative. No, if you have a chance to eliminate the 2-point play, so they got to score and get 2, and you're still not losing, I'm taking that. I'm taking that.
The reason why I disagree is because if you go up by 9, you put them in a world of hurt.
You do, but if you don't, and he goes for 2, now I'm in a world of hurt. I would have rather had the ball last with the score tied, knowing I could get it to overtime, than having that I got to play from behind. I got to get something. Now, it worked out perfectly for him, but I think, to me, I don't think it was conservative. I think it was
conservative.
I think it was really just really good strategy. I would rather guarantee my team a chance to go to overtime than to be chasing that 1 point.
No, that's
because I'm convinced Sirianni would have gone for it for 2.
I mean, they were aggressive throughout the game. Other than the go up 27-21,
they
were going for
30,
it on those fourth
I think if you asked both coaches today, what do they regret? I think Andy Reid probably is kicking himself in his ass for the 3rd and 2 call in the red zone before the missed field goal. I think he really feels like, I wish I had that call back. And I think Sirianni wishes he had the 3rd and 11 call back.
Yeah.
I think he wishes he had that call back. I think that's the 2 calls in the game that he said, okay, we really didn't maximize our situation. 3rd and 11, and get the ball back. I think he expected them to run 0 blitz. He ran a crosser, remember, and they rallied and tackled it for 5 yards. So I think he was expecting pressure, and he was going to get a man beat. So he ran a man beater, and it became a zone, and I think that's what happened.
After the game, Jalen Hurts talked about how you either win or you learn. And Hurts, I thought, was really impressive. We'll play the clip here shortly, and I want to talk more about Jalen Hurts, but here's what he had to say to the media after their loss to the Chiefs.
Man, I think you want to cherish these moments. You want to cherish these moments with the people that you've come so far with. Your family, your loved ones, your teammates, your peers, everyone that you do it with and do it for. And I'm so proud of this team. I will say I'm so proud of this team for everything that we've been able to overcome. Obviously, we had a big-time goal in the end that we wanted to accomplish, and we came up short. I think the beautiful part about it is everyone experiences different pains. Everyone experiences different agonies of life, but you decide if you want to learn from it. You decide if you want to use that to be a teachable moment, and I know what I'll do.
Mike, I'm a Cowboys fan, and I hate the Eagles just inherently. It's hard not to love Jalen Hurts, man. He is so impressive.
I mean, look, and I never thought he could reach this level, and who did, right? You get benched for 2 in a playoff game, in a championship game, have to go to Oklahoma, doesn't really throw the ball with great anticipation, but yet he's got incredible character.
Oh, my God.
And I think that's part of what you really can't maximize, right? So we were in Cleveland. We were trying to come up with a an understanding of what makes great quarterbacks. You know, Trent Green gets an 8th-round draft pick, gets cut by the Chargers, gets cut in Canada, kind of bounces around. And a lot of it comes down to the character of the player, right? The intestinal fortitude of the player. Yep. This kid's remarkable in that area, you know, because for some of his deficiencies that he does have, and that the Eagles have done a great job of hiding, like any quarterback, right? That he's overcomes them with this character. Now they're going to have to pay him, and he's going to get a huge chunk of money, and he's well deserved because he put them on their back, you know, and he covered up for what their problems were. So, I mean, he's an impressive kid, and you want to build around somebody like that. You want your best player to be the best leader, the hardest worker, and he obviously is.
I mean, you think about the guys who are in that locker room, like Jason Kelsey, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham. Those guys gravitated around Jalen Hurts. It's like, oh, like, this is our unquestioned leader. Right. And they've been around the block. Those guys have won Super Bowls in the past regime with Doug Peterson, but they just were like, hey, Hurts is the guy, and he is kind of the face of this team. After the game, Patrick Mahomes, this is the winning quarterback in the Super Bowls, about Jalen Hurts, said, quote, if there were any doubters left, there shouldn't be now. That was a special performance that I don't want to get lost in the loss that they had. Make sure you appreciate that when you look back on this game.
That's classy that he says that, because it's true. I mean, the 3rd and 7th or 12th throw to Goddard was incredible. I mean, he made some incredible throws in the game that I didn't think he was capable. I'm sure Steve Spagnuolo feels the same way. But I didn't think he could make that throw, you know, and he did. And you know, and he ran the ball with. Look, Miles Sanders was a non-factor in the game.
God, I whiffed on
Gainwell wasn't a factor in the game. You know, he was going to throw the ball, and they did exactly what they needed to do, except the defense didn't show up. So I agree with Mahomes. Don't lose sight of. I mean, look, Chuck Howley just got in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
he was one of the few players who won MVP of a Super Bowl.
He's the only one
on a losing team. I mean, you could have easily given Hurts the MVP of this game. Like, they gave it to Mahomes, but there's nothing in the stat sheet that says Mahomes was the MVP. He was thrown against a high school defense, right? I mean, even Mahomes would say this to you because he's such a humble kid. Like, I didn't really have a hard throw in the game. Now, he made a great run on the scramble, on the first drive of the second half, that scramble there where he was hurt, that was a great call. And then the play of the game, which was reminiscent of the Tennessee game. Do you remember we talked about the Tennessee game all the time where we said he's going to take off and run like he did in Tennessee, which won that Tennessee game for him in overtime. So, but there was nothing that you said, wow. Like, if they said Hurts was the MVP of the game, even though they lost, he was unbelievably the best quarterback on the field that day. He just lost.
Yeah. Now, you took the question right out of my mouth because I wanted to ask you, I was like, do you think that this is one of those rare instances where the losing quarterback should have been the MVP? He was the best player on the field last night.
That was by far.
I thought, by far. Like, he was the best player on the field. Unfortunate for him. I mean, obviously being a team game, that's why we love football. His team came up short as a whole there, but I thought he was terrific in that game. And for the Eagles, the strength of schedule was talked about quite a bit in the lead up. The lack of playing elite quarterbacks was talked about quite a bit. But I still came away from the game last night of like, okay, they didn't lose because they played an easy schedule. They just lost because the defensive game plan wasn't what it needed to be, I thought, in this game. Like, to me, because I think that's going to be the narrative. Like, oh, the Eagles weren't as good as everybody thought they were. The defense was overrated. The pass rush was overrated. I think that's a little misguided.
Yeah, I mean, I do too. I think, to me, they dominated who they played, so throw that out.
Exactly. This is the NFL. It's not college football.
I think, to me, the interesting thing is going to be for Philly is who they hire as defense coordinator. That's going to be a real interesting hire. If Gannon does, in fact, get this Arizona job, like many of us feel he will, who do they hire? And how do they change that? Because if you're Howie Roseman today flying back to Philadelphia, you built the team with a great front. You're going to lose a lot of those front players, right? You're going to have to, you're not going to sign, it's going to be hard to sign Hargraves back. It's going to be hard, but you can still have a good defensive front. But one thing, you can't play the way we played and play against elite quarterbacks. I think that was the thing that got hidden in their schedule. They didn't play elite quarterbacks or elite offenses. I mean, Rodgers put 33 on them. Dak put 40, but they turned the ball over 4 times in that when Dak put 40 on them.
Yeah.
So it was hard to find a tape where you could see that you could take advantage of their secondary if you could block them. I mean, that was obvious on the tape. But if you're Howie, you've got to sit there and say, what do we do? How do we fix this defense to complement what we do offensively? I think that's going to be the interesting hire. I mean, who does he go to? I think they need to change their philosophy become more of a man team, rely on their front, more of a press team, disrupt don't let it easy for the opposing offense, because it isn't about winning the East. That's not the concern. The concern is, can we beat San Francisco? Can we beat Kansas City? That, to me, is, you have to say, put that up there. That's where can we beat Buffalo? Can we beat, like, Buffalo would have moved the ball on them all day?
Can we beat Cincinnati?
Can we beat Cincinnati? If you're Howie Roseman, that's what you got to look at.
On the flight back home to Philadelphia, are the Eagles saying to themselves, how did we lose to that team?
Of course they are. It's the same thing the Patriots said when they lost to Philly. I mean, I talked to people after that game. How the fuck did we gain 500 yards against them? We gained 500 yards against them. I mean, and Brendan Graham made the play of the game. It's no different than this game, right? Graham's fumble on Brady at the 2-minute warning won the game for him.
Yep.
They never stopped.
Came down to one play.
It's the same thing in this game. I mean, the penalty, the missed field goal's the turnover. We said all week long Bucker was not reliable outside of 40 yards.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we knew that. So I think, to me, the Phillies sitting there saying, look, if we had any defensive strategy at all, we're probably going to win this game.
Yeah. It's an opportunity that's lost for this Eagles team. Terrific all season long. And in the biggest game, unfortunately, their defense couldn't get them the stops. They couldn't get home on Mahomes. And we said, if it's a close game in the fourth quarter, I know you talked about it quite a bit, Chiefs have the advantage because they have the best guy in football.
I mean, that third and 11 call there that he has to settle on the crosser, and he goes up 27-21. I mean, and I'm not an aggressive guy by nature, but I would have probably thought about
going for it
because I think you almost have to, because that 3 points wasn't really, it ended up not being a difference maker in the game. It's easy to say in hindsight, but to me, once he scored in the second half to make it 24-21, you knew you were going to, that game, as I sat on my couch, I thought you were going to need 41 to win the game. I thought you were going to need 3 more. But they were milking so much of the clock. It was hard to really, the game got reduced so much.
Because the first half felt like it took forever. Second half, it was, man, we were going to get about
that
3 drives or so per team.
Well, that drive that they got 3 points on, they went 16 plays. I mean, it's
7 minutes or so.
7 minutes or so. So it's hard.
Yeah. Did you have the volume on last night?
Yeah, I had Millie there. Although I couldn't really hear it that well. I didn't really hear much of it.
Okay.
I had my grandsons running around the house. I was playing pizza, throwing them up in the air. We played, we're kind of doing a little bit of everything. Yeah, it was fun though.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I'll go back and watch the broadcast and see what it was like. But we were doing the show, so we never had the audio on.
Yeah,
so I saw everything, but I didn't hear what they were saying.
When I get back to Jersey, I'll watch the tape of the game. I'll have it for the Thursday pod.
Have some chuckles. All right, let's take another break here. We'll talk about the Eagles and what they do on the other side, because their coaches, their coordinators, I should say, might be getting some head coaching jobs in the NFL coming up shortly here. But this is the GM Shuffle. We'll be back on the other side. So the dominoes now starting to fall in the head coaching searches after the Eagles lost to the Kansas City Chiefs last night, 38-35 in Super Bowl 57. We saw the report early in the morning, or I'd say late morning or so, from Adam Schefter of ESPN, Ian Rappaport of NFL Network as well, that Eagles offensive coordinator Shane Steichen is scheduled to fly to Indianapolis today to finalize the deal to become the new head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, as the Eagles and coach continue to kind of trade coaches, going all the way back to Frank Reich, going from Philly to Indianapolis. But what do you make of this potential hire of Shane Steichen, which will probably become finalized later this afternoon?
I mean, we said it on the show yesterday morning. Patrick and I did, that he was. I said 95.5% he was getting the job, because I could never predict with Irsay. Could sneaks Jeff Saturday in the park in at the last second.
You might hire me as the head coach.
Look, I think if you're Chris Ballard and the Colts, you're saying, the one thing the Colts wanted through the interview process was to keep Gus Bradley. That they made that very clear. Mm-hmm. So even though they interviewed defensive coaches, they were not going to let Bradley out of there. They loved Bradley. I think Jim Irsay's daughter loved Bradley and really felt comfortable with him in the building. And they loved Bubba Ventrone, their special teams coach. So 2/3 of the team's coaching staff they loved. So that put him in position to then say, okay, who's the best offensive guy out there? And then what Hurts has been able to accomplish, and what Steichen was able to do in terms of bringing that college element to the quarterback position, enhanced his value. And I think that's ultimately what got him the job here. Now, they'll have their opportunity to go out into college, and whether they take C.J. Stroud or somebody else, Anthony Richardson, I don't know who they're going to go with, because it's too early to say.
Yeah.
but they will be a six-back team next year. They will be some form of a six-back team because I think Steichen is going to take that Eagle offense with him to there because he knows it works if you get the right guy at quarterback, whether it's Hurts, whether it's Anthony Richardson, if he'll work as, Richardson's obviously has enormous talent.
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's just not – he's raw. I mean, he's just an uncut diamond. I mean, you're going to have to finish him off. So I think that to me is the move. How Philly replaces Steichen, I don't think is because Sirianni obviously allowed him to call the plays. I'm sure they can find – they're not going to change what they do in Philly. The rules might change. I mean, at some point, this aiding the runner from behind, this rugby play, which I thought was illegal, is going to get. I can promise you, the competition committee is going to do everything in their power to take that play out of football.
I think so too.
Because it's really absurd. It's made. They were great at it. Don't get me wrong. And every team could do the same thing, but I think to me it smacks at the rule, which is you can't aid the runner from behind.
It's the most unstoppable play in football.
Right. When you
you can't do anything.
You got a guy who benches 600 pounds, and you get a 300-pound man pushing him behind him. The pile's going to move.
Yeah. No, it's come to the point where 4th and 1 as a defense, you're just helpless.
Yeah.
With that play, which is not in the spirit of the game.
And a lot of it too is their pad level. They get behind. They do all that. But I mean, I think to me they'll look at that rule. There's no doubt.
It's interesting that you mentioned Steichen is going to bring over the six-back offense. He did come from Los Angeles, where he was the OC of the Chargers, and he was calling plays for Justin Herbert his rookie season there. Do you think that Steichen would only want to do the six-back, or can he also work as well with a traditional passer?
I think because of the look, as Parcells always says, we can only take what the college gives us, right?
Yeah.
You can't invent something. Now, if they had Justin Herbert in a drop-back pass game that comes to them in their pick, it's easy. But who's out there in the draft? Who's that guy? So you're going to get somebody who's very athletic, who's kind of like Hurts, who you could maybe manufacture into this. Who's got what I think people are missing on Hurts is the work ethic.
Yep.
100%. Is the character of the human
100%.
being. Like that allows him to take his game to another level. The character of him is what makes a huge difference.
That's the most impressive thing about Jalen Hurts is that since his freshman year at Alabama, he's gotten better every single year watching this guy. I remember as a freshman at Bama, they played the Washington Huskies, a team that I root for, in the playoff. And I was like, this guy can't throw. Like, he's a running back. Like, they should be able to stop this Bama offense. Now, Bama, of course, trucked them in the game. Yeah. But that was what Hurts was his first year, and they ultimately lost the national title to Clemson. And since then, though, he's gotten better, quantum leaps every single year because of that work ethic.
Right.
You can't just project that onto any old person. Like, you got to know what you're getting if that person that you're getting also has that work ethic.
Plus, he got benched in a college championship
title game, yeah,
and didn't pout.
No,
didn't cry. Was on the sideline cheering for Tua. That was impressive, right?
Mm-hmm.
He didn't get pissed off. He transferred because he wanted to keep playing. And I mean, the kid has handled every setback and turned it into a comeback. I mean, you can't. So when you're looking at players in this draft, you're using Hurts as the model.
Can't do that.
You got to make sure the guy's character matches Hurts, not the guy's just his physical skills.
No, 100%. And Hurts he stuck around the year after he got benched in that title game. Because remember, he came in the SEC championship when Tua got hurt against Georgia, and he saved the day that game. So he didn't play for much of that season, comes in, was ready, he saves the day, they go on to the national title game and ultimately win it there.
I mean, his parents should take a bow. They raised
honestly,
a hell of a kid.
Like, he's a hell of a person, man. And I hate that I can't root against him. Root for him to fail, because I'm like, I like him as a person, but he happens to be the quarterback of the Eagles.
What would Joystick have done with him?
Don't even get me started on that. He's not my problem anymore.
Yeah, Joystick's not your problem anymore. Watch Joystick. He's going to go out there with Herbert. They're going to throw the ball all over the lot. Everybody's going to love Joystick next year. Watch it.
Yeah, everyone loves that coaching staff. Do you think it's the proper way to build, though, in Indianapolis, was saying, okay, Steichen, your defensive coordinator is set, your special teams coordinator is set?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't at all.
That.
I mean, I think how are we going to develop players? I mean, Gus Bradley's did we forget the Minnesota game where they played Palms the second half of the game? Like, seriously.
Got shredded.
They got shredded. Like, I mean, I like Gus. Gus has been, his scheme, even Pete doesn't run his scheme anymore.
Yeah. Dan Quinn stopped it, too.
Dan Quinn stopped it. So, like, unless you got assurances from Bradley that you're going to change what you're doing, I don't see it. But they love him there, and they're in this subcontractor mode. And if you're Ballard, you're really worried, are we going to develop talent? Now, you get Steichen developed Hurts, right? They've played a lot of young players at Philly, so maybe you feel like you'll get that going. But to me, Steichen's number one job is to get the offensive line in Indianapolis to play at the level that we thought they could play at, not the way they've been playing with Reid.
Yeah, they've invested a lot in that offensive line. One of the biggest disappointments this NFL season was them playing poorly. Ballard feels like he's on the hot seat, though.
When you get, he got, look, give Ballard credit. He kept Saturday in the Park from going there. He threw his body up again, because God knows that's when does Saturday come back to ESPN? That's the other issue we haven't talked about, right? Like Saturday in the Park's going to be on the phone with Irsay. If you're Steichen, you're saying, like, how is this happening? You know that red phone that Batman would talk to Commissioner Gordon? That's going to be the Irsay phone to the Saturday in the Park.
Special consultant? Is that what they're going to give him?
Yeah, all we need is Alfred the Butler to come in.
Advisor to the owner. God
So
bless
bad.
the Colts.
Yeah.
Sorry, Elliot. Hopefully they can turn it around. The Arizona Cardinals, though, they're expected to hire a coach this week as well. All signs point to Jonathan Gannon, who, if you've been listening to this podcast and you made it this far, you know that we have not been high on him with what he did in the Super Bowl last night. And also this dates back to last year.
I wasn't. I was killing him last year.
Yeah, we're not second guessing like we say. This is a first guess.
No,
deal.
I've like never seen the brilliance of him as a coach. Like I've never seen it during there. And maybe he has it that I can't find it. So, that's going to be an interesting conversation. You go in with the mayor and say because Vance Joseph did a really good job for what he had in terms of his talent, what they did. I thought Vance Joseph did a really good job. And I think Vance Joseph was one of the few guys in that building that the players respected. So Gannon's walking into a tough job. That's going to be a hard job. You're taking over for a coach that the players liked, that was trying to hold accountability, and then you're inheriting this quarterback who's a loose cannon, who's not going to – I promise you, I don't give a shit what they say. If he plays by October 1, that's a miracle.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect.
I think he starts the year on pup. So it's going to be that's a challenging job. And the owner has control of the 53-man roster. So, you're still dealing with that.
It feels like Kyler's 2024. That's what it feels like.
I think so.
Yeah. Is this the toughest job of the jobs that we've seen come open this cycle? To me, this feels like the hardest one to kind of turn around. Given that the quarterback is hurt.
Well, because you got Kyle sitting up there, you got Sean McVay. You're competing against two really good coaches, right? So you got those two guys you're competing against. So, and then you got Pete Carroll up in Seattle, and they've got a bunch of draft picks. They're going to re-sign Geno. So it's going to be a hard division to handle.
That's a very tough division there. Good luck to Jonathan Gannon, and good luck to the Arizona Cardinals after what they saw last night. I'm sure they're thrilled with that hire. The fan base in the Valley of the Sun. Real quick, some other QB notes here that we should get to before we wrap up this segment. Derek Carr has informed the Las Vegas Raiders that he will not accept a trade to the New Orleans Saints or any team for that matter. Vegas now expected to release Carr over the next 48 hours.
All right, so really why? Why would you not accept the trade? Because you're not happy with the contract. So whomever takes Carr on is basically saying, here's what we're willing to pay. And if that doesn't entice you, then you want to become a player into the free market. So now I go into the free market, my contract gets absolved, so now I start anew. See, the beautiful thing for New Orleans was they could have taken that money he was owed, $120 million, $40 guaranteed, and turned it into something that they could really put him into their cap. Now, they could still do that. They could make him cap friendly for 2 years if they wanted to, but obviously it's also now, it's not a cap issue any longer, it becomes a cash issue. How much are we willing to spend on Carr for the next 3 years? Will he get $70 million for 2? Will he get 80 for 2? Will he get 90 for 2? I mean, that's the issue. So the only way to know that is to become a free agent.
Yeah.
Because water seeks its level, right? So once you're out there, you'll find out who's all there. And the Raiders weren't trying to get a 1 or a 2. I've said this on this pod many times. If they were going to get a Saturday pick, that was going to be a really good play.
Yeah.
So it's not about the Raiders are holding it up because they want compensation. I think a lot of it is because of Carr's contract and because of how Carr fits into the other team's cap.
And the reason why he was able to do this is because he has the no trade clause in his contract.
Yeah.
So he can say, hey, I'm not going to accept the deal. And the Raiders, you just got to take what
because he's got to, no matter where he goes, he's got to redo the contract.
Yep.
He goes to New Orleans, he's got to redo the contract. If he goes to another desperate team for a quarterback, he goes to the Jets, he's going to have to redo the contract. Nobody wants to take on that without redoing the deal. So now he's got to have a say in how he redoes his contract.
So he visited the New Orleans Saints last week, and it sounds like it was like a 2-day visit.
Yeah, but obviously he didn't like what he heard.
Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't like
or
what he
the
heard.
agent didn't like the contract.
Yeah, I think maybe that's more so what it
I don't think it was held up because the Dave Ziegler, the GM of the Raiders, says, I only wanted 2 for this guy. Ziegler knows he's in no position. He's got to take what they give him, right? So I think a lot of it was, hey, we'll pay you 50 over 2. No, I'm not doing that deal.
Yeah.
And we'll give you 30 guaranteed, and no, let me go out in the market and see what the market value is. And the only way you know that is to get into free agents.
Now that he goes into free agency, what kind of contract do you think he'll get? And can the New Orleans Saints match these other teams in an open market?
I mean, the New Orleans had their chance at the plate, and I would think if they want them, they're going to have to come up with the offer. What is the best way to get what you want in any negotiation is to say no.
Yeah.
And walk away. When you have that ability to say no and walk away, when you have a timetable on it, there's a great saying by Duke Ellington, I don't need more time, I need a deadline. When you put a deadline on contracts, then they have to get done. When you have more time, you can try to stir up. And look, Carr's very good politically now. He's got Tom Pelissero, he's got all these guys working.
They're doing PR?
Doing the PR for him. So, if you're the GM, you're sitting there saying, well, the Cardinals really love Carr, or, the Bucks want Carr. You're going to have to figure out what's real. And then not only you have to figure out what's real, you got to figure out what's the real money. Yeah. There's one thing for you and I to have an interest. It's another thing, what are we willing to pay?
No, that's 100%. Deadlines make deals, as we oftentimes say in the National Football League and other aspects of our lives. Speaking of deadlines, who knows what the hell deadline Green Bay Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers is on?
Andy Dufresne went into the thing today.
Yeah, today's the day that starts
last
the
night
retreat.
He was playing classical music, and he got and Warden Crichton came in and got him out of that. No, Warden Crichton's from Batman. I forget what the warden's name from Shawshank. Anyway, the warden comes in, puts him in the hole, and he's down there for 4 days. Andy Dufresne got 30 days for playing Mozart. I mean, this guy's only getting 4 days. And then when he comes out, here's what I don't know. We're all talking about this. Like, how do you trade for a guy that you don't know how long he's going to play for? How do you do that?
You have to contractually get something written in the contract, but would he ever agree to something like, hey, you have to play X amount of years, or if you retire, you owe us X amount of dollars or whatever, that we can kind of work some things around.
He's got all the leverage.
He has all the leverage.
I think Green Bay said enough was enough. I know Big Daddy said enough was enough. Big Daddy's sent his memo out to there.
Did he?
That he's done with them. He wants to get on the Jordan Love train.
I'm intrigued by Jordan Love, man. I mean, I don't know what we're gonna see, but that Eagles second half when he came in when Rodgers got hurt, he made some throws. That's what I'll say.
Jonathan Gannon taking another one on the chin.
Gannon just catching strays all over the place.
Yeah, catching strays left and right.
But Rodgers, the report came out in the New York Post that the Jets and Packers have had kind of preliminary discussions about some sort of a trade. Now it's still early on. Do you think the Jets are the favorite to land Rodgers if he were to say he wants out?
I think they're the lock favorite. Because, look, at this point in your life, you don't want to change the language you speak.
That's a good point.
And so Hackett has the offensive numbers, the codes, and all that. So, if he goes to Josh McDaniels' system and at the Raiders, it's different, right? Mm-hmm. It's something he's never been a part of. Rodgers is really smart. I'm not saying he can't learn it, but
does he want to learn it?
Does he want to learn it?
Yeah. What do the Raiders do if they don't get Rodgers and Carr goes elsewhere?
Well, I mean, I think they've got to draft one. I mean, they have a high draft pick. They're going to have to draft one. They're going to need a young quarterback. I'm sure they got to re-sign Stidham, who at least looked decent in the one game against the 49ers. You got Garoppolo out there. You got other options. You're going to have to look into that. But I think for the Raiders to build their program the right way, they're going to have to draft somebody.
All right.
I mean, they're going to have to draft somebody, and go from there and try to build around that guy. Because, look, the one thing we know about the Raiders, defensively on their talent level, that was not very good. I mean, so they have all this cap room. They're going to have to put money into their defense. They just can't give $50 million to one guy and say, okay, we're just one player away. Would Rodgers make them a better team? No doubt. But they got to get the Eagles were able to build their team around a young quarterback. That's really what the recipe for the Raiders is, and they have to have patience to do it. The Raiders have only they've been to the playoffs twice since 2002. Mm-hmm. I mean, everybody thinks the Raiders are like this incredibly talented team. Like they haven't built a team with a lot of good players around. That's what they need to do.
Yeah, well, people don't like your boy Josh McDaniels, so they're going to try to put the heat on him if they don't win next year.
Yeah, I mean, But that's Twitter. Everybody don't like nobody. I mean, seriously, who?
Everyone hates
everyone.
Except we all love Jonathan Gannon, of course. Let's take our final break. We'll get to the awards and also take a look at next year's way too early Super Bowl odds for Super Bowl 58, which will be here in Las Vegas. All right, let's hand out some hardware, Michael. Last night, of course, the commissioner handed the Lombardi Trophy to the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes won Super Bowl MVP, but everyone wants to know what our awards are.
Yeah.
Fred Palermo, best game plan of the week.
Well, I got to give it to Taub. He had the return. I mean, the Tony return was huge. Actually, almost cost them because they moved too quickly to score. The Eagles came right back and scored again. But, I mean, you got to give the special teams credit there. They missed it. You know, this was two bad special teams. Covey had a return, too, in the game.
Yep.
When Andy punted it down the middle of the field at the end of the half, which you could never do. But they do.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, look, I give Taub credit. His team's covered. Both teams wanted nothing to do with the return game on the kickoff. They kicked it out of the end zone all the time. They know they can't cover. I mean, they spot the ball at the 25. So I'll give it to Taub, the special teams coach. That was a key play in the game. The Eagles couldn't cover. I can't wait to watch it on tape because I'm sure they would have called something on that play. If it was a regular season game, there would have been 27 flags. My man Scott Novak would have had laundry all over the goddamn field.
Scott Novak, a name that we don't have to hear until next September.
Where is he? Where is Scott Novak? He didn't even get a playoff game. Shows you how good he's doing.
He was throwing the flag at home while watching the game.
I would have called that.
Who's going on the lam?
Oh, well, I mean, Gannon's going on the lam. He's going to go to Arizona. Is that a retirement job? I mean, is he going to a retirement community? I mean, seriously. I mean, look, it happened before. Patricia, I mean, he got the Detroit Lion job after that performance in the Super Bowl. I mean, think about it. Like, if you're Bob Quinn and you just watched them defend Philadelphia, who's in your conference, and you never made them punt, I mean, wait a minute, something's wrong. I'm a little nervous. If I was Michael Bidwell and I just watched that and I never stopped anybody, and don't tell me that he was playing with lack of talent. Like, he has talent on that defense. Like, seriously.
Howie Roseman stocked the cupboards.
Yeah, I mean, Howie won Executive of the Year. You can't blame Howie. So, I mean, look, he's going on the lam, and he's going to get rewarded, which is the greatest thing about the NFL. You can be really bad and get rewarded if you have a good PR campaign. If you have good political capital, like Gannon has, you can achieve anything because they won't look at the numbers. Nobody watches the game.
All you got to do is, my advice to the coaches out there that are upcoming, just text back all these insiders. If you text them back, they'll like you and they'll give you the good PR.
Yeah, exactly. Like, look at who they promote for head coaches. You know where they're getting their info from.
Exactly. By the way, Philly, they only failed to record a sack in 2 games all season long. That was week 6 against Dallas. They won that game in Philadelphia, then last night in the Super Bowl. So
they're going to blame the field. George Toma's going to get it. I mean, let me say this to you. Carl Cheffers will not do. I'm going to write this down. What's the date? The 13th?
The 13th.
Carl Cheffers will not do a home Eagle game for 2 more years. I promise you, the league won't put him in there. He'll get shit thrown at him the whole game. Will not. His name is persona non grata. Nobody will remember the name of the side judge over there who called the penalty. Carl Cheffers will not be seen in Philadelphia. I mean,
Philadelphia or Jersey.
No shit. No. He might do an Eagle road game, but he ain't doing an Eagle. He will not be at the link for 2 years. I promise you that.
And
I mean, there'll be snipers. There'll be the grassy knoll will be over there. We'll have the 6th floor. I mean, he will not be a safe man in that town. So let's just put that out there. He should be the guy on the lam. Carl Cheffers. He's on the lam. Carl, do not go to Philly. He'll have to land at the Trenton Airport if he ever goes to Philly. He'll have to sneak into town.
I don't want Carl to go to Philly, and I don't even know Carl.
He's not going to Philly.
For his own safety.
I'm telling you, he will never go. It's like Walt Coleman, who called the Tuck. We never saw his ass in Oakland again. He was not showing up.
He ain't showing up to that one. David Ogilvy, biggest fraud of the week.
Well, I mean, you got to give it to the Eagles defense. Some 60 sacks out of their 70 came from the front. They made no plays. I mean, they made no. You can blame the grass. That's another guy who can't come to Philly either. George Toma, God rest. I mean, he's 94 years old. I don't think he's traveling to Philly. But if he wanted to come to Philly for a cheesesteak, it's over with for him. He ain't going. There's no grass that he's allowed to inspect in Philadelphia. Think about it. Philly. Think about the city of champions, Philly. The Union lost their title game. The Phillies lost the World Series, and now the Eagles lost the Super Bowl.
Somebody tweeted at me, said that I jinxed them because I was watching the Union match during the MLS Cup final, and I said,
but you're not allowed to come to Philly either.
Apparently, I'm not.
They got your picture on the billboard in
Ever
Philly.
since I tweeted that Philly might be the city of champions, they lost all 3
You're not allowed to come to Philly.
Titles.
Carl Cheffers, you, George Toma. There's 3 people not allowed to enter Philly, which means the Sixers are going to get to the finals.
Oh boy!
Good luck on that. Okay, that ain't happening. That dog ain't hunting.
I was going to say, I was like, for your sake, I hope that doesn't happen. You have to experience that heartbreak. If you don't know, now you know.
If you don't know, now you know. That's a good one. If you don't know, now you know that Eagles defense couldn't stop a good passer. I mean, you got to admit that, right? It all comes back to Philly's defense. It isn't really Carl Cheffers. It comes back to their defense. They can't play man-to-man.
Yeah, that secondary got exposed.
Yep.
They got exposed last night there. Before we get out of here, though, Michael, let's take a look at some of these way too early Super Bowl odds for Super Bowl 58, which will be played here in Las Vegas. Cannot wait for that a year from now. The favorite is the defending champion, obviously. Now Kansas City Chiefs, 6-1, Buffalo 7-1, San Francisco 8-1. These odds courtesy our show sponsor DraftKings. Cincinnati and Philadelphia both 9-1, Dallas 14-1.
You can't wait to bet Joystick at 22-1, can you?
Joystick and our guy, the genius on defense, 22-1, as well as the Baltimore
How
Ravens.
about the Jets at 28-1?
Some Rodgers speculation.
I mean,
maybe?
I go with Bengals. I go with Joe Burrow at 9-1.
Joe Burrow 9-1 is what you like.
I think that's a pretty good play. It's going to be interesting what Buffalo does this offseason at 7-1.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that's pretty. That would be interesting. The NFC, win the NFC odds. You know. How
Niners
about the Lions 11-1? How about
Dan Campbell. Are you on the train? Restore the roar.
I mean, look, they're a good team. I think if the Saints got a quarterback at 22-1, they would be a valuable option there.
A lot of talent on that team.
I mean, and look, the Broncos at 17-1 with Sean Payton coming back. Interesting to see. I don't know what the Ravens are going to do. Andy Reid was talking about Eric Bieniemy after the game. What a great job he did. It almost seems like Bieniemy is going to be a coordinator in Baltimore or Washington next year. It just seems to me like that's going to happen. My guess is he's going to Washington. That's what I've heard, but we'll see. I think, look, the Bengals at 550-1 is still a play.
Yeah, Bengals 9-1 to win the Super Bowl, and then plus 550 to win the AFC.
You love Tua at 15-1.
No.
I saw you at the window. Hey, Elliot, I saw him at the window. He turned that card in.
Nowhere near there. I would
15-1.
go off the board, honestly. I would go to my old stomping ground, Seattle. I think they're around like 65-1, 75-1. They have a chance to really improve that roster with that cap space and the draft capital. Now, Geno Smith in the playoffs, we'll see what happens there.
How about Joystick? He's 11-1 to win the AFC.
Good God.
I can't wait.
No playoff victory, but 11-1 to win the AFC. The Chiefs, though, just another note, third Super Bowl champion since 2005 to enter the playoffs as the favorite to win the Super Bowl and win it. The 2013 Seahawks did that, and also the 2016 New England Patriots did that as well. But that does it for this NFL season, Michael. Hell of a year.
Yeah, we'll see you Thursday. We'll be back here Thursday. We'll recap.
Yes, we will be recapping.
And we can talk about Jonathan Gannon's tenure as the Arizona head coach.
I'm sure we'll have some press conference clips.
I'm sure he'll get asked a lot of tough
Gannon.
questions. You know, why did you play so much Jones, Jonathan, in that playoff game, you know?
Yeah, it's be all sorts of fun. But we'll obviously recap all the head coaching hires that we see here with the Colts and the Cardinals. Then maybe some quarterback nuggets that we get between now and Thursday. But we ain't going anywhere just because the season is over. GM Shuffle's going to roll on, and we'll see you guys Thursday. Thank you to DraftKings. Thank you to VSiN. Thank you to our producer, Elliot Bowman. Michael, it was awesome to see you here in person.
Awesome to be here. Yeah, I love it.
Excellent episode. Thank you to you guys. Subscribe, rate, and review as always, and we'll talk to you on Thursday. Thanks for watching the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi. And for more videos like this, make sure to subscribe to VSiN Live and the GM Shuffle podcast with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN, wherever you get your podcasts.